Welcome to Keiser Voices, the story of success, brought to you by Keiser University Graduate School, here where the academic world meets personal triumph. Join us today as we dive into the captivating tales of success.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Keiser Voices. All December long, we're going to talk up how you can level up before the new year. Now, this is not a new conversation for any of our students or alumni, but we wanted to bring together some of our amazing student services directors throughout this system to bring this conversation to you and provide everyone listening an opportunity to also level up before the new year. And it never hurts to go back over these topics anytime we have the opportunity. So I'm excited to welcome Mr. Jorge Diaz from our Tampa campus and Mr. Dennis Ferraro from our Orlando campus. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us, Heather. I'm a big fan. I look forward to your podcast, and I can't wait for this recording to come out. Well, I guess people might not know this is not live, so this is recorded. Although we're so good, we probably could do this live. But go ahead, Heather. Thank you for having us.
I have faith in you both. So we really wanted to talk with you guys and get some insights from you about, the conversations that you have with students in the community about resumes and cover letters and how someone can stand out. With any job posting, we know that they're getting hundreds of resumes, cover letters, applicants, and that people are having to go through. What key elements do you guys recommend for someone to include in their resume so that they can stand out in today's market?
Some of the big things that we talk about over here at in the Tampa area. First off, I start off with telling all the kids and our students the same exact thing, which is, hey, getting a job is a job in itself. So first thing that we have them do is research. So researching is one of the key features of being able to create a targeted resume. And that's what we're trying to go ahead and do, is have something that is targeted to the specific role they're applying for, which in turn is going to help them get through the computer section of it. So what we've seen is that we've all experienced the same exact thing, where we go in, we apply for a position, and they tell us to submit a resume, and then we have to rewrite that resume into whatever server it is that we're applying for, so TGH or Baycare or anything like that. And they're using their bots to go ahead, search the resume for those keywords so they can get to the next level. Every institution has that. So with the research portions of it, it kind of gives us an insight of what maybe some of those keywords are. So if you see these words kind of repeating, we like to go ahead and keep tally of it. And we'd like to go ahead and use that in what we call our profile section, which is that first section of the resume. So that's one of the biggest things that we try to go ahead and teach, not just the leadership students, but the entire student population when they come down.
Agreed. And I thought we're probably all going to say the same thing. However, kind of along those lines, a lot of our students, either they don't have experience, or maybe they have had another career, or they just had jobs, they didn't have a career. So don't focus on where you've been, focus on where you're going. And a lot of times we kind of focus on our skills, education, experience of where we were. And I think every day we see a student's resume and go, hold on, what position are you applying for? And it's like, just looking at their resume, it just looks like their previous career. They just need to translate that into the career they want to go on to. So again, focus on the education, experience, and skills for the jobs. And like George said, keywords.
And you guys bring up like a very valid point. And I was actually going to ask you about it, but you've already started touching on it, is that the resumes have to be tailored to fit the different roles and industries. You cannot submit a generic resume if you want to get noticed. Dennis, when you're working with a student that's applying for these different roles, how do they tailor their resumes? Like, how do you simplify it for them so that way they're not freaking out when you say, I'm sorry, you can't use this one, we have to do a new one?
So, like George was saying, look at the jobs you want to apply for, and you're going to target your resume for that. and use the jargon that they're using in the industry and field. And I always like to use examples, and I'm sure my wife would appreciate this, but now the two of you know, I use my wife as an family always appreciates when you use them as an example. But even within the same industry, my wife has worked in investment finance over 25 years. She was, this is years ago, so nothing recent, but applying for another investment finance position, same or similar position, same industry, investment finance. And she's like, I have the skills for this job. I don't know why I'm not getting an interview for the job. And then she looked at the words in the position description, and again, it was the same skills, but she just reworded it the way they worded it, and she got an interview. And also, it's always a good example when they get offered the job. So my wife was offered the job. She decided to stay where she was. She wasn't sure about the security of her job, but then she realized, and again, we've had students fall on that too. And I use that example with students. Like, it's not just you, it's my family too. It happens with us. It's like using those keywords that are specific to the field. And sometimes, like I said, it was the same field and same industry. It's just they use different words for the same things.
That's a valid point. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I completely agree with Dennis at that point. The way that we word things and how we decide to go ahead and use those keywords, I think it transverses through Keisers at this point, but especially with the resumes, it really gets you through the initial portion of it. So I tell my students, who do you think actually looks at your resume? Who's the first point of contact? What is the first point of contact? And everyone's always saying, oh, the hiring manager, oh, the office manager, oh, whoever. And it's like, no, honestly, nobody's looking at it. What is, or the people that are actually looking at it are your computers that are keyed in with the HR. HR might not be proficient in, we'll say, occupational therapy language. So if you're using these acronyms to go along, which is one of the things that we kind of push them not to use, it could get flagged as a misspelling because the occupational therapy assistant fully listed out what she was looking for. The HR manager keyed that position or that particular word in, and now when we put our acronyms that we use daily, in field, it's not going to show up, and it shows up as a misspelling. Guess what? You're not going to call back. That resume is getting kicked out.
I'm glad you mentioned the misspellings and abbreviations, because even talking with graduate level students, to get them out of the acronyms, to get people to hit spell check, it's very hard. Yeah. Like they don't think about it. They're just throwing the stuff on the resume, and then they're submitting it to us in student service and saying, here you go. You got to figure it out for me. So those are often like big mistakes that I don't think we talk about often enough, because we assume that somebody's going to hit spell check. I barely remembered hit spell check on an email. Mm-hmm. So like I fall victim to that too. Are there other like red flags, like the don'ts that we need to bring to a student's attention, or anybody who's writing a resume's attention?
So, I want to forget your question, because the two of you brought up great points. We know applicant tracking systems. The challenge is, and kind of going back to the previous question, is our students don't necessarily know applicant tracking systems. So that's just, for those who don't know, that's a software system HR professionals and companies use to manage the applicants that are applying for jobs. But we all know the internet. We all know keywords we type in to search the internet. We're all getting to know AI now, that hey, I want to figure out this thing. And a great way to use AI, and this is what we're saying, is you can look at job descriptions. And I always say, just like look through the job ad, find out what keywords they're looking for. And but again, you could that's a great AI prompt. What are keywords for an occupational therapy assistant position, to kind of get those keywords so you have them. And then I even forgot my second thought before your red flags, but you were talking about something else. Oh, so when and again, I know that we all have the same challenges. We require our students to get a resume for graduation. Even one of our faculty members she's completed her master's degree now, and our graduate degree faculty are kind of like, It seems like you kind of checked out now, because again, you get so close to the end, you're just checking boxes, you're ready to graduate. Oh, I need a resume for graduation. You throw something together quickly, you submit it to us. I know the two of you give me your best resume, I could find something to help you improve it. So I always tell students, I'm like, get your resume as good as you can before you have me look at it. Because again, if you're just throwing it together, if there's typos and if there's gross inaccuracies, I'm just fixing those. But if you have the best possible resume you could get, I could take it up a notch. And so, and even still with those students that, hey, just throw a resume together, I'm like, let's schedule a follow-up. Let's get fine-tuned. But I remembered, Heather, you said red flags, which again, I have this written down for a later question, but proofread. Yeah, those typos, acronyms misspelled. I know the two of you have heard from recruiters. If something's misspelled on their resume, an acronym's misused, something is inaccurately worded, that's a red flag for recruiters. And I'm sure the two of you have seen that too.
100%. And for me, I mean, one of the things that you touched on earlier, and that we had mentioned was customization. The opposite is a huge red flag, to us at least. It's having that generic, because we've had a few students in the past that have had some difficulties gaining employment, and after diving and talking to them for quite some time, they were sending a stock resume out, and it was just completely 100% generic. These are my skill sets. This is what I've learned. Please hire me, kind of a deal, without doing the research. And unfortunately, at that point, that was one of the bigger hurdles that we had to come across. Thankfully, we got the point across, and they became employed. But there was a gap in there that, the student was worried whether they were going to get a job or not.
How do you guys address gaps in their resumes? We have a lot of students that are, single mothers that are going back to workforce. Maybe they had medical emergencies and they had taken time off. How do you guys address the gaps on the resumes, or like the stay-at-home parent on the resume?
So one of the cool things that we talk about in our sessions is, they're starting new. So they're college students. They're not expected to have a ton of experience, and sequential experience at this point. So whatever experience they do have is usually out of field experience. So we'll tell them, there are transferable skills at that point. So don't discount what you've done in the past, but we're not highlighting that as one of your key points in that resume. It's one of the only times in your life when you're changing careers like that and going to school and focusing on school that you're going to have that flexibility of having gaps in your resume. So we treat it as, especially with the medical students, we'll treat it as your internship was a working position, but it was not a paid position. Your clinical sites are all things that we could go ahead and draw experiences from. We just can't say that we worked for these places. So we highlight those experiences as part of that section in the resume, and move forward. If there's a gap in there, it's easy to explain. I changed careers. I went to school. One of the big things that we saw was, and we're running into it still, is the COVID gap. So a lot of our students decided to change careers. Now they're starting to go ahead and they've just finished up their programs. They were on the back end of COVID, or they were in high school coming into school at that point, and they don't have any kind of working experience at all. So internships are super valuable, especially to go showcase any kind of work experience.
Yeah, and actually, I just had a student like that yesterday. I must have been prompted with every situation that we're talking about within the last day. And again, it's not traditional to Keiser, other than flagship. I had a traditional psychology student graduating psychology, bachelor's degree in psychology. She's focused on school. She's like, school was my full-time job. I do not have any work experience. So along those lines, which I know the two of you know, this functional resume versus chronological resume, a resume focused on your skills. And then when we say chronological. Your resume is actually in reverse chronological order. It's not actually in chronological order. So you start with what you're most currently doing, most recently to least recently, and hopefully that makes you the most marketable for that position, and it fills those gaps. Like George said, including your externship and clinical experience, that's the most recent, and then your experience that's not as relevant is further down on your resume. But I like the profile or background section and just one bullet to explain something like that. Or that's another reason for a cover letter, but keep it short and sweet and to the point, just one sentence. Don't get into too much depth about it, and then don't get too cute about it, because I've heard of people that, and we've all gotten resumes like professional diaper changer. It's like, no, it's like was out of workforce for a year due to family emergency. Short and to the point, but also just like it's short and to the point in your resume, in the interview, prepare something that's short and to the point. And I tell students when they bring up those concerns, Heather, that so you have it short and to the concise to the point in your resume and your cover letter. If they ask you in the interview, be prepared to say, okay, what does this gap account for? And just have a one sentence response. Just provide that answer to say, I had to take some time off due to a family emergency, period. Don't go into too much depth about it.
And you guys are the best guests because you're like setting up all these segues. You're making it easy for me to ask you guys the next questions. But Dennis, you brought up the cover letter, and that was the next part that I was going to bring up with you guys, because I think we could talk all day about resumes, like do's and don'ts. I mean, we host an over hour-long seminars on it regularly. But first off, what's a cover letter? Because a lot of students are surprised when they're like, I don't know what that is. Like, I'm required. What is it? Like, so what is it?
So that's a good question, and I think it. I kind of like, I don't know if this is an antiquated term. I like a letter of application better now than a cover letter, because I give students the history of the cover letter. I'm sure the two of you remember this, but a lot of students, I'm like, literally, it was a cover letter. You used to mail your resume. There used to be this thing called the U.S. Postal Service that you would mail your resume, and a cover letter will go on top of your resume. And then the other thing is with the cover letter, so it's like, okay, it's a cover letter, so it goes on top of your resume. When I started doing this over 25 years ago, I would say the cover letter got them to look at the resume got you the interview got you the job. I don't think that necessarily holds water now, because again, like we've been discussing, you apply these applicant tracking systems, you upload your resume and cover letter, you complete the application, and I know the two of you have hired too. So when we're hiring, sometimes I'm not looking at the resume or the cover letter. I'm just looking at the application going, okay, what's their education experience? I could quickly see that. Okay, I'm going to look at their resume. Sometimes I'm a fan of cover letters, absolutely write a cover letter. We're going to talk about this for a while, I feel, but absolutely write a cover letter. But I'm not looking at the cover letter until I go, oh, I like this person. Let me look at their cover letter. Do I want to interview them? So now it's kind of like the resume, application, cover letter, interview, job. The cover letter is getting me to, it's getting me to determine whether or not I want to interview for this job. If I have my top 10 candidates, getting down to the top 3 or 4 to interview, I'm selecting them with the cover letter. The other example, you guys are going to learn, I like to use examples. I know the two of you had that. Everyone wants to work in student services in higher education. We have the privilege to work in student services. When we have a student services job, every faculty member, admissions counselor, financial aid officer applies to work in student services. And I get their resumes and application. I'm like, okay, they work in higher education. They know student services. Let me look at their cover letter. And I'm sure the two of you saw this, and this is what George was saying about common pitfalls. They just have a generic cover letter. And when I look at, I get again, just to use an example, an admissions counselor. I have an admissions counselor resume. I look at their cover letter. Their cover letters, it's like they're applying for an admissions counselor. It's not even like they're applying for student services. It's not even saying, hey, I get to work with students on their transition into college. I'd love to work with students as they're graduating from college, or I haven't had the opportunity to work with students during student organizations or activities. They're not even selling on me on why they want to work in student services or what skills they have that would be applicable to that. So they don't get the interview. So I say the cover letter gets you the interview. making sure those skills, education, experience are specific to the job to get you that interview. I'd like to hear what the two of you have to say.
I like the cover letter portions of it, but I don't actually read that cover letter until the very end. So I'll go through, I'll check out the education portions of it, the requirements, the general overall requirements. I actually go back, and in the cover letter, I tell my students to go ahead and include some of these skill sets of how they would be how they could best utilize the skills that they've learned in that field at that company in that particular position. So it's like when I'm hiring at that point for a coordinator or something along those lines, uh, you know, with the admissions, I thought was funny because that's what happens. It's like, oh, I could go ahead and dial out. I could go ahead and do this. I could do that. I'm not looking for any of those skills. I'm looking for something completely different, like Dennis said. It just shows me at this point that they haven't gone ahead and read my job posting at all. So
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, you're just applying blindly, and because we're on the same boat or in the same company, it's not an excuse. So the cover letter portion of it, yeah, once you get past that first initial stage, you're going to go through, we're going to go ahead and have some conversations as my own team here, and then we read that cover letter at the end to go ahead and see who we're going to actually interview. What I tell them is it's short and sweet, make it concise. There's no reason to go ahead and get too wordy with that cover letter. I like to go ahead and start it with, where did you find the job posting? Because I don't know about you guys, we post everywhere, from LinkedIn to Indeed to all over the place, and I've seen a lot of companies starting to do the same exact thing. A lead that I get from Indeed is different than a lead that I get from my LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I have a bunch of options, and I tell the students, hey, go in and look at who they're related to or they're friends with on LinkedIn. And then that way you can make those same kinds of connections and you have a commonality to start with, So that first paragraph is kind of, I call it the meet and greet. It's where did you find me? Why would you like to work for me? What's my mission? What's the mission statement of the actual company? Second paragraph, how do I fit in? So there's a little bit more to it than that, but the gist of it, I was, agreeing with Dennis, like we all have the same kind of mentality when we're doing these things, which is awesome.
Yeah. No, and it's funny because as we actively are recording this podcast, because it will air differently than obviously we record it, I'm hiring a coordinator to support our Latin division, which means the most important thing for me right now is not what's in the cover letter. I'm not looking at it right now. I'm going to look towards, the end. I'm looking for one word, and it's Spanish or bilingual. That is all I'm looking for. And if I don't see the Spanish or bilingual, I'm not, I moved on. I went through a stack of 50 resumes in 5 minutes because I was looking for 2 words. And that's the reality of it, because like you both said, the applicant is trying to sell themselves, if you will, to the person hiring them. And the way that you do that is by showing that you've read the application. Like nothing, I hate hiring. Like I tell my staff, I absolutely hate hiring. Nothing frustrates me more when one of the questions is, are you willing to work a night weekend? Nope, Monday through Friday, 8 to 2 only. Mm-hmm. If you read the job description, that's not what it's, so it can get very frustrating for hiring managers. It can get very frustrating for the HR department who's doing the pre-screening. This is like a commonality that we all experience. So your time to shine is with the resume and with that cover letter. And you highlight who you are and what you're about, and market yourself to these people. One of the things I always found interesting, though, and I don't know what you guys do when you do mock interviews or even when you're hiring internally. I always ask this one question, and it's, what is it like? What's that lasting impression? What do you want to tell me about yourself that this, this piece of paper, this resume isn't telling me? Like when the personality and the true motivation comes in, how can they incorporate that into their cover letter or their resume, so that way you're really getting a feel, like the hiring person's getting a feel for whom they are. Are they going to fit this role? Are they going to fit the team? Are they actually excited to be here? Or, is it just like clock in, clock out?
So we do we do our mock interviews. We have them actually submit. So we work with them throughout the entire process. And I'm going through it with the OTAs right now. So our OTA cohort's getting ready to graduate. Our nursing cohort's getting ready to graduate. And one of the things that they have to do is supply us with a resume. So we'll do the in-service or in the actual classroom form at that point. So each one will go ahead and submit a resume. We'll review that resume, and depending on approval is whether we can move on to that second step, which would be that interview. What we try to do to capture a personality within it is so I don't like the objective statement. That's just my little pet peeve right there.
Thank you. I mean, I applaud you. Thank you.
Yes. So
that's a whole other conversation.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So how many objective haven't you read that says the same exact thing? I'm a recent college grad with XYZ of skill sets that needs to grow, position, blah, blah, blah. And it's all the same stuff. It's like just wasting space on a page. So what we try to go ahead and do is kind of facilitate something slightly different. We call it a profile or a profile statement. We try to stick with a profile. We have some keywords, teamwork, creativity, problem solving. They're pretty generic on their own, but every single field uses something similar, right? So whether you're a graphic designer or whether you're a business major or whether you're an OTA grad, you're going to have to be creative in some format. There's a bullet word. Now, what you put behind it is kind of your personality. Why are you creative? What are you creative with? And how does this happen? Right. So we set it up to where that first one is that first section is just going ahead and hitting on those. It's just a window of this is what I'm about. At the very end, I also have a section called core competencies. So I have a skills section, and I call those hard skills. At the very end of the resume, the core competencies are what do you think you're good at and why? Right. So they're responsible for having all these soft skills that we can't go ahead and grade. We can, but we're it's a little bit more subjective. And those are the talking points that they're going to actually have within that interview. So if they do if they do the entirety of the resume, they actually have supplied the employer with questions to ask at the very end of the interview or during the interview at that point. And they should have answers for all of those. That personality is going to shine through because those are the questions that you wanted them to ask. So it's a little back and forth trick that we use, but it seems to do the job down here.
Dennis, you're gonna make me nervous. Are you a fan of the objective? Like I could go for an hour. I could go for hours.
Dennis.
We have the objective debate. It would truly be an objective debate. So the objective debate is I agree with you. Objectives are no longer on resumes. However, I always felt like even when they were on resumes, it was optional. I personally have never had an objective on my resume. So I never stopped at objective. I do have a profile or background section now. Absolutely agree with that. The objective is to get the job you're applying for. I mean, it's kind of redundant to say, to George's point. And then also I've heard other people on my team have said you could say, again, it's one sentence on a cover letter. Why are you taking the time on your resume to tell them why you're applying for the job that you're applying for? When you initially asked the question, Heather, I thought of two things. One is if it's in the position description of the job ad, which a lot of us aren't able to do, and I don't even think we do it at Keiser. Also, we can't do it at Keiser because we each do different things at each of our campuses. A director of student services, associate director, coordinator does different things at different campuses. So our position descriptions are kind of vague and in the same because again, we kind of change roles as needed and it might be different by campus. But for companies that can advertise what qualities they're looking for, just like those keywords, you want to hit on those in your resume and cover letter and hit those qualities, a lot of times that's going to come out in the interview because and I tell students all the time, and I know the two of you have heard this all the time. Students come in and say, I haven't gotten a job because I don't have any experience. Well, have you had any interviews? Yes. Yet I've had interviews, but I don't have experience. Like, if you have the interview, you're qualified for the job. Now they're just trying to see, do you fit on the team that they have? Do they have those qualities, traits? But also, it's kind of hard to know that because you don't know who's on their team and how you fit into that team. But you kind of the only way you get to know that, just like the job description, you see the descriptors for the job description in the interview, what questions they're asking you. And we've all been in interviews where you get to start, they're asking you questions. They go, they had an issue with the person showing up on time before, or they had an issue with the person not getting along with people, or not respecting the authority of their boss. It's like, it's kind of like those work assessments, or there's job assessments. That's like, will you show up to work on time? I always show up early. I show up just on time. I show up late. I'm like, who's saying that they show up late on that? It's like, if they're asking you the questions, you kind of get the idea of what they're looking for. And in that case, in the interview, and again, we're kind of skipping ahead to the interview, is as they're asking you questions, you're like, again, any one of those qualities. This person had an issue with teamwork. At the end, when they say, why should we hire you? Hey, I'm a great team player. Everyone in my organization, people kind of sought out me for problem solving. People in other departments and even people on my own campus would reach out to me. And even people at other campuses at E campus in Tampa would reach out to me in Orlando because they knew I was a great team player. So again, you're selling yourself based on like what questions they ask during the interview.
So since you guys brought up one of my tangents, objectives, I have another tangent that I would love to get your input on. And I think it's to note, we did touch on cover letters. I think we all kind of feel the same way. We don't emphasize them. They're important, but the resume honestly is where it's at. That's what's going to really bring it home for you. Where do you stand, since we talked about the personalities, about the hobbies? Have you seen those on resumes? Like, personal hobbies, knitting, walking on the beach, playing with my dog, traveling. How does that go on a resume? I really would love to hear your perspectives.
No.
Yeah, that's a short and long of it right there.
Again, you have such a limited amount of time to sell yourself for the job, and you really want to sell yourself for the job. You want to focus in everything from the resume to the cover letter to the interview. You want to focus on things related to the job. The only, again, because there's no absolute, so it's not absolutely no. If your hobbies are related to the job, and if you have skills that you gain from those hobbies or personal experiences, you might want to include those on there. And then particularly for, again, the students without any experience, that student that came in yesterday that has no work experience, I'm like, do you volunteer? Did you get involved in any student? But again, we tell students this at orientation, like, get involved in one thing on campus. Do the leadership distinction program, because again, I think between the three of us is like, you could have a whole section on your skills you gained from professional development seminars, from community service that you did. So again, that's building your resume there. So if it is related to the job, or if you gain skills related to the job, possibly, but again, making it specific to the job. I'm not again, they're trying to get your qualities or your traits from the interview, and I don't know if that's necessarily going to sell yourself to get you the interview.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, man. Yeah, nobody needs to know if you like to ride dolphins on the weekends. It's not a thing, you know. But what I do tell the kids is the same exact thing, especially with their nursing department. So depending on the program that you're in, it's some of that holds value. we ask them to go ahead and join NSNA. We have them do the SGA portions of it. Volunteer experience and leadership experience like that definitely highlight those aspects of it. The nursing, I know, like Big Care by Us and HCA are big on volunteering within the communities that they're in. I'm sure it's the same in your guys. So if you showcase that you're already volunteering, we'll say in the crisis centers XYZ that they do twice a year, or the breast cancer walks, if you sponsor those, that might be something that we would consider putting on the resume at that point, because it just makes it goes back to the point of trying to fit into an area or into a job with the least amount of friction. I want to fit in and I want to get off running. So for us, yeah, we'll showcase some of that stuff, but not any kind of hobby like that.
This has actually been, very helpful, even for me. I think we all look at resumes day in, day out, not just because we're hiring or when we're hiring, but because we're trying to assist these students with that next step. So like hearing your guys' perspectives are, I find very helpful to me. We always have the opportunity to learn more and grow. But what other advice would you give someone when it comes to updating their resume or cover letter before applying?
I always say it's a live document. So updating before you apply, you're a little late on it, right? So as you go through, just start updating it. Make it a point to have it on your calendar. If you do it that way and you do it once a month or twice a month or once every 3 months, however it is, you're gonna have a resume ready when it's needed. It's one of those things. How many times hasn't somebody been at a work or a networking conference or a networking event at that point, and you run into somebody that's hiring for a position, and they said, "Yeah, shoot me your resume." Well, now I have to go home. I have to update. I got to make sure that everything's spelled correctly. I got to make sure that all of the things that I need or that position is looking for is on that particular resume, and then I have to send it out. Well, that quick fix that I could have gone on to LinkedIn and sent them my resume instantly turned into a 2-day, 3-day event. By that time, guess what? That hot spot turned into a warm spot, turned into, oh man, I forgot I told you to apply. So definitely keep that thing updated as you go through. Make sure that you're following all the rules and you're doing it regularly. At that, with that, a lot of things will just fall into place.
And they're trying to allow time to get a hold of Dennis. So Dennis can take that quick look over it. And Dennis
Definitely.
is allowed to have a day off. He's allowed
Right.
to have Saturday off.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean,
Well, I said it earlier, which I know the two of you know, proofread,
Yeah.
and then get advice from, and again, and I tell students from multiple people. I'm fortunate enough to have 2 other people that work in my office. I go, we'll have professional differences of opinion. We'll give you different opinions. So see everyone in student services. Don't limit it to one person in student services. Go to your faculty members. Go to your clinical supervisor. But the one I always love is like, go to someone who knows. I always love the person that's like, oh, my brother said this. And I'm like, well, who's your brother? It's like, sometimes the brother is like, oh, they're the director of HR at IBM. It's like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, your brother knows. Most of the brothers don't know. And it's some random person, and everyone has an opinion on resumes. And then I think we've all had this experience that I know the 2 of you have. You give someone advice on their resume, you go over their resume. Sometimes, again, it's some quick stuff, so you quickly redo it. You send their resume back, you retype stuff, you reformat it, you reword it, things like, hey, there weren't that many changes. I made them, I sent them to you. A month or 2 later, or next semester, they send you the resume. It's the original resume. And again, you don't need to take all of my advice. And I know us personally with our resumes, we get advice on our resumes. It's like we might not take all of their advice, but take some of it. I mean, and we see literally hundreds of resumes. George, I think you see the similar number. I have 300 grads a year. eCampus, I know you have the most graduates. We see hundreds of resumes a year. So few people see that many resumes that often to give advice. And then something you said earlier, Heather, about, I think it was the qualities made me think of something else. It was actually someone who doesn't work in career services. At my previous employer, I was applying for an internal job. She saw my resume. And again, I've done university career services and now student services. Kaiser's provided me the most diverse experience, but for the most part, I've done university career services. So basically, all my jobs, they sound the same. It's the same descriptors. And she goes, well, what about your accomplishments? So have an accomplishment focused resume. I know we talk about outcomes focused, results oriented. What did you accomplish? And then that could kind of set out some of your personal qualities.
I'm going to add into what you guys are saying. You've already kind of touched on it. Have more than one resume ready to go. You still have to fine tweak it, but like I personally, I have a background, a financial background, and then I have higher education background, and then I have within higher education, I've had a couple of different opportunities, and now here I am at student services. So I have 3 versions of my resume. One that spends more time on my financial background, another one that just focuses on more so the higher education and it references the financial background. And then the last one is purely my student services experience. So even I personally, I have multiple resumes. And then when it does come time to apply, it's a matter of those, like you guys have been saying, those keywords, those little differences in the job itself that you're applying for. Guys, I can't say thank you enough for coming on this podcast, helping us to help everyone level up before the new year. Thank you, Dennis and George, for joining us today.
Thank you for having us again. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I hope we can do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. Thank you for having us. Happy holidays, everyone. Have a great new year, and hopefully you took some, again, same thing on this. Take 1 or 2. You may have not liked everything that we said, but pick 1 or 2 things you liked and update your resume.
People get a little sensitive about objectives. I'm just, so pick something else.
Take the objective off. If nothing else.
No, please, before I see your resume, before these guys see your resumes, take it off. All right, guys, thank you so much. And if y'all have enjoyed this conversation, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow. And keep joining us throughout the month of December. We will be talking about interviewing with Miss Sarah Miller from Daytona Beach later on this month. So that conversation is coming along with a few other ones, and we will catch you on the next one.
Thank you for journeying with us today on Keiser Voices, the story of success. As we close this chapter, remember, every story has its next page.